Al-Qaeda's Yemeni branch says it directed the deadly attack. Robert McFadden has been watching the events closely. He's a former special agent in charge with the U.S. Naval Criminal Investigative Service and currently is a senior vice president with the Strategic Security Intelligence Service, and he's in New York. So, Robert, what do you make of this claim by Al-Qaeda?
Well, first, in hearing it, it's not a surprise because whether it's al-Qaeda or its affiliate in Yemen, those organizations tend to latch on to or take credit for attacks after they occur. Sometimes it's just in the form of encouraging what they call the brothers to carry out violent acts, or in this case, a more explicit claim of actually directing it. But I would say at this point, though, it's really too early to tell if the intelligence will bear that out, if there was a direct or more of an abstract command and control from al-Qaeda in Yemen.
What's your hunch?
Well, at this point, it seems, and just simply going by its modus operandi and its tactics up to this point, its external operations centered on the bigger aviation, usually targeted events, or in one event a few years ago where it went after the interior minister of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in a failed assassination attempt. The hunch, it's hard to avoid the gut feeling when you've been in the business for a while, but it doesn't matter so much because these three individuals, for we're learning so far, are homegrown radicalized extremists that may be influenced by what al-Qaeda says or Islamic State says, but it's really the ideology of that the extreme form of Islam is the driver of these acts. Whether it was directed by someone outside or not, the threat remains the same.
And how sophisticated would you describe what happened in Paris over the past few days?
Well, this is more sophisticated and more planned out than some of the more recent typical lone wolf or wolf pack type terrorism events. Obviously, at least the two brothers going back to the mid-2000s have been involved in radical extremist causes, facilitation, and consistent reports. At least one of the brothers went to Yemen in the 2011 period, when I know that organization very well in Yemen. And certainly there is the ability to train on various types of weapons. But it's interesting and important to find out what happened in that 3.5-year period since that time. Certainly ample opportunity for familiarity with weapons for use in an attack like this. So by degree of sophistication, a bit more, they had an egress plan. But typical to the script, though, on small-scale attacks, there's little planning as to what happens after the event. And, we thought it would be within hours, if not days, before at least the two were captured.
And how worrisome is it that if there is, in fact, this Yemeni connection and that it was directed by al-Qaeda inside Yemen, how worrisome do you think that is in terms of what could happen in the future and how radical this branch of al-Qaeda is?
Okay, the first thing here, and no intention to be glib, there could be an upside if there was external support, direct support, not just abstract support for an operation like this. It gives the intelligence and security services more of a chance to infiltrate, to detect, to disrupt. On the downside, though, it could indicate a change of tack, let's say, if it bears this out, that al-Qaeda core is deciding to emphasize small-scale, soft-target attacks. But again, for our emphasis, though, it's not so much the group affiliation, it's the ideology, which is the cancer that's fueling these types of acts, whether on a large scale or small scale.
And let me just ask you, without wanting to scare people, is this the new normal? Should we just expect in the West that this kind of thing is just going to keep happening on a fairly regular basis somewhere that just can't be stopped?
No, and of course, it's an absolutely valid and apt question. First, I'd answer that by saying keep things in perspective, okay? When you talk about the percentage of foreign fighters, let's say from Canada or the United States relative to Europe going to a place like Syria, absolutely minuscule. However, we know that it only takes one or a few to be quite lethal. So with that kind of balance of perspective, there's absolutely no reason from what our national leaders are telling us and advising us that there's an imminent threat on a large scale. However, though, sir, when you go to different places around the world, the context and the circumstances could be much different and indicate a new normal. France is dealing with some very, very significant challenges with its demographics, with its a significant minority that's a generations-long underclass. Those are the kind of things that will be incubators for perhaps increased threats in places like that.
Sir, appreciate you taking the time. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
That's Robert McFadden speaking to us from New York.